Hi everyone, welcome to another HR market update. This time Stuart is recapping quarter one of 2023 and we hope that you enjoy.
Market sentiment for Q1 was actually quite disappointing. I was personally hoping that it would be a little bit more positive than it was. What we saw in Q1 was I suppose, a knock-on effect of what we had in the end of sort of 2022. So it was disappointing. We still had redundancies, layoffs, tech was still struggling, and that's had a bit of a knock-on effect, I think, for the sort of broader global economy. When I look at each individual office around the world, I wouldn't say that any are any different to anywhere else right this minute. There's still nervousness, there's still uncertainty, and what we're seeing is interest rates are going up, but we're not seeing sort of any real change. So it's a difficult market, and it's even harder if you're a candidate right now looking for a role. The job market's been a really weird existence over the last 3 years. What you've seen is panic going into COVID with job numbers halving for us as a business anyway, and it became a really sort of difficult marketplace. Broadening then into sort of 2021 and a recovery from COVID, and then into sort of 2022 where there was a real panic around hiring and getting people back into the workplace. So, and then that leads into sort of 2023 and people are clearly overhired and the market's becoming even harder to sort of navigate. So what you've had is 3 years of completely changeable market conditions, and that's really led to the sort of situation that we're in now, where we've had boom, bust, boom, and now we're sort of back into sort of bust again. So we're at that point now where I think we're returning to what I would class as more normal recruitment conditions. We're seeing that people are having to go through the normal sentiment of applying for jobs on LinkedIn or utilising agencies in the way they would. As an agency, we're having to come up against, again, in-house recruitment that has a little bit more time on its hands and therefore do a little bit more direct sourcing. So there's definitely some normality. However, that's sprinkled with a little bit of nervousness in the market. So it's been a very, very odd time for recruitment, but normality does seem to be resuming. So first and foremost, there are more candidates in the market than there have been for a little while, especially if you're looking in the talent acquisition space right this minute. Um, you don't need to be a rocket scientist just to read the news and understand that big companies like Meta and Microsoft have been laying people off, especially in sort of the TA space. So first and foremost, you need to understand the fact that you are up against more people and therefore you need to stand out a little bit. I also think that you need to have a little bit more of a strategy to sort of your search than you possibly have had to do previously. So before, I think a lot of people were probably picking up the phone or dropping you a message on LinkedIn and headhunting you direct. If you're actively looking, my advice would be to look at the job and see how long it's been open. If it's only been open a sort of a day or so, you're probably one of the first applicants. If it's been open a week or two, then you're probably sort of looking at that midpoint in their sort of recruitment process. My advice would probably be to hold off until you've seen that job open for 3 or 4 weeks. It's a tricky one because I know there's a little bit of desperation if you're actively searching for that job. But breathe, panic, take some advice from people, talk to your agencies as well. And most of the time now, agencies are not just there as salesmen. They're actually to help guys and guide you. And I think they'll really offer you some good advice in that case. So let's start with the dropping off one because I think that's a little bit the elephant in the room. We're definitely seeing less talent acquisition roles than we saw in 2022. Clearly, companies are hiring less, which means they're sort of leaning up their talent acquisition teams. So that's definitely where we've seen a drop off. Where we're seeing companies focus a little bit is more around their sort of operational activity. So in the US, for example, we've seen more roles come in that are probably payroll specialists, benefits specialists, things that are regarded sort of absolutely essential to the running of the business. More broadly around the world, say London, Hong Kong, Singapore, we're still seeing generalists and HR business partners, I suppose, as the core group of roles that we're seeing in the market. We've also seen a little bit towards sort of talent management, while people are sort of cutting heads, they also want to retain the very best people that they have. That means they're looking at their attrition, they're also focusing on their sort of talent management strategy as well. So while they want to let some people go, they also want to keep the very best people. So I'll answer this more from a candidate perspective. My first piece of advice for any candidate would be to really understand where you sit within an organisation, and be honest with this. So are you a top performer? Are you somebody that's indispensable to the organisation? Have you received high performance ratings consistently over a period of time? If you have, I would therefore say that the company's going to do all they can to keep you. If you haven't, there's clearly a little bit of cause for concern. I think that companies are going to look at their poor performers or even their average performers and think, can we do without them? So the biggest piece of advice I'd give to candidates is really look honestly at your performance reviews. Are you somebody that's indispensable or not? When it comes to companies are still keeping their very best performers. They know that in order to sort of do well, they need to retain them and keep them. So they're always going to do that. What they will look at, though, are going to be the average to sort of lower performers. Can they do without them, and do they need them? First and foremost, I want to say thank you to everybody who's actually listened to the podcast over the last few months. We've had some really amazing feedback on the podcast, and starting out as something that was a little bit more fun and just see whether our audience liked it, and it was actually turned into something that I really enjoy doing and I'm actually very proud of. So first and foremost, thank you to everyone who's downloaded it. Season 5, really excited with the different guests that we have on board. Always excited to have such a scale and inclusive group. Sash is a good friend of Elliot Scott's, a true expert in that DEI space. So if you haven't seen or heard that podcast yet, please do listen. We also have some amazing guests that are talking much more about mental health and wellness. This is a topic that I am seeing and hearing about so much more at the minute. So if this is a space that interests you, please do listen. We have some great guests, the best here in the UK. Thank you everyone for watching this update. If you have any questions on anything that I've been through today, please email me at se@elliotscotthr.com, and thank you for watching.